Hey, Jerry here with Binsburg Technologies. Enjoyed so much meeting with you guys. Thank you so much for the invite. We've been brewing on this proposal for almost 2 years now, so we're eager to present it to you. Keep in mind that all of our proposals are very fluid. In other words, we're always going to bring you the product that we think fills the need best, that performs the best, and does the job best. We're not into wasting the church's money, so we want to give you value over just cost. So you may notice that some of these items are a little bit pricier than maybe that you have expected. Um, there are alternates. You will sacrifice something in reducing it to an alternate piece of equipment. However, we do have a backup plan for anything that may break the budget. That being said, the reason that we propose a lot of things we propose is because we use them over and over. And when we use something and it's predictable and it performs extremely well, we continue using it because every time we use something new, it's always a gamble, and it's hard to gamble with your church. So, without further ado, let me get right into that proposal for you. The first thing that I want to talk about is the audio system. To me, audio is always primary. Audio is one of the first things, besides aesthetics, is one of the first things that people notice about a church service is the way it sounded. Was it clear? Was it muddy? Was it done well? So, right now, as far as speakers go, which speakers are always the heart of your system, you can have a great console and everything else, but if you have a bad speaker installation or design, it ruins everything. Now, you don't have a bad speaker design, you just have a dated speaker design. Back in 20 years ago, this was all that we had available to us. This is a horn-loaded two-way cabinet. So we've got a total of 5, 2 for foldbacks and 3 for front of house. These are great speakers, but in this space, there's something that we have available to us now in a line array design, JBL VRX, and I'll go ahead and show you a kind of a mock-up of what that would look like. The only difference between this mock-up and the actual is the one that we will install actually has 4 cabinets underneath the subwoofer. So there's an additional cabinet there. It's kind of hard to see in this perspective, but we need that 4th cabinet to be able to reach all the way, because you have a very long sanctuary, all the way from the back pew all the way into the altar space. So, but that's kind of the way that that's going to look. In addition to the JBL VRX line array, we want to add 2 columns on each side. And this is a narrow column. It has 8 2-inch speakers in it. And this is for the purpose of side fields. Now, even though the JBL VRX has an extremely wide horizontal coverage, 130 degrees, the speakers that you have right now have a 90-degree coverage, but you have 3 of them. And so to get that extra feel on the sides and coverage, we usually have to do what's called a side feel. And these JBL columns work very nicely with the line array, just to fill in those extra spaces on the front outside corners of the pews. We've also included a smaller version of the JBL VRX line array. The one that's facing forward is the 932, and then the one that we have that actually is in a foldback configuration for choir and things like that is the 928. It's a small half-size version of the one, and it's actually going to be tucked in behind the main array. And then we've got Dynacord amplifiers, which have the processing that we really need for these speakers. Almost the entirety of your wireless microphone systems are current and great, so we want to reuse them, but we want to move them and put them actually in a rack. And combine their antennas and then send their antennas to a couple of directional fins to reduce dropouts and to get rid of that antenna for us, and really to clean it all up. Then that cabinet can be removed, and it'll look nice and clean. Then we've got 4 community MX8W, the white version. We can go black, but I think white would look great in there. It's up to you. Floor wedges to replace all of your hotspots and things like that. And that'll give you really, really good high-powered audio wherever you need it on the stage. And then we've got, to tie it all together, we've got a lot of trunk snakes, specially made custom trunk snakes so that we don't have cable going all over the booth. As you'll see when we look at the layout in a minute, there's going to be a possibility for it to evolve back into what it looks like now. So using trunk snakes actually sends the connections that we absolutely need to from one place to another over a singular cable. So let's look at the layout, and I did send this with the original proposal, and in fact the last proposal I sent you was a little bit more updated than the one that that we were looking at while I was on site. When we were looking at while I was on site, didn't have some of the things, the cameras and things like that, that are in the most current version of that. And so I've been working on the most current version, and let's go to the layout, and then then we can break it out from there. Okay, in this layout, if you can tell, we've got the rack over on the left. It's a 26 space middle Atlantic rack. It's going to be in the place of the current amp rack. We will have to remove that one shelf that's right above it for it to fit, but it'll be super clean, and basically it'll contain anything that doesn't need to be out of the rack, including the wireless microphone receivers, antenna distros, power distribution, and all the amplifiers. And so that's going to not just clean everything up and pull everything into a rack, it's also going to look very professional. And so here's your existing digital console laying right there in the middle. That's the PreSonus 32SX that you currently have, Series 3. And then beside that is a primary power distro and a media player. So you currently have a media player over there on the right of the digital console, and we want to basically replace that with an all-in-one. And everywhere that you see these items, like the power and the media player to the right of the digital console, those are in 2-space laminate wood racks. So basically these are black laminate wood racks that are just big enough to hold these 2 pieces. So it's super clean and keeps everything from just resting on the tabletop and stuff like that. To the left of the digital console, there's the Easy Worship PC. Again, the monitor sits atop a 2-space rack with a Blu-ray player and the HDMI switch, and that pulls that out of that little cubby behind behind the console and pulls it out there front and center. And then beside that is our lighting PC, and that includes a power distro and the MyDMX RM, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then in the little cubby that we were talking about, we'll replace that setup with the streaming PC. So that will be a little nook that will move the live streaming setup to. Again, a monitor sitting atop a 2-space rack with a power distro, a 1-space drawer, and our new video switcher that we'll put in there, and camera control. So that's the layout in the booth itself. In fact, if I go here, we'll be able to see that a little closer. And if we do this in conjunction with the trunk cables that we were talking about, the booth will be set for years to come. In other words, it'll be highly predictable, it'll be up to date, and there'll be no need to change anything or mess with anything for a long time or service anything for a long time. It'll be stable and predictable and dependable. If in the future there is equipment to be swapped out or anything like that, the configuration that we're talking about will make that super easy and intuitive for whoever's doing it. And so all of the cable behind here will go away, and everything will be nice and neat and truncated. All right, so if we go back, we've talked about audio quite a bit. Actually, let's a little bit more about audio. The other thing that we want to do is, I know we did discuss moving this rack to the stage, but you can see the size that the rack will be. Instead of moving it to the stage, I feel better about keeping it in the booth because it keeps everything local. For instance, the wireless microphone receivers have RF and audio meters on each one. I believe the ones you have actually have transmitter battery meters as well. So being able to monitor those is very handy. Also, anytime that you have to if you have to access an amplifier, it's there during the service rather than having to actually trespass on the stage during a service. So I feel better about leaving it there. If we did move it to the stage, the discussion was we move it to the stage because we've got the digital stage boxes there. The distance between the stage box and the amp rack is pretty similar to what it would be from the digital console to the amp rack. So since we have onboard connections at the digital console, it's not really necessary for clarity and sound quality purposes. Also, the stage boxes that we have on the stage are not rackable stage boxes. They are literally what they call a stage box. There's a rack box and a stage box. So the digital snake that's on there, the two boxes are stage boxes, and they're made to live atop the stage. So what we would like to do, instead of just leaving them where they are, we would like to incorporate all of the connections in the pocket boxes to those stage snakes. And what that would do is eliminate the analog snake altogether and drastically improve the sound quality for anything that's connected in the stage boxes on the stage. Instead of the position that they're in right now, though, we would like to move those from the side of the stage where they are to underneath the stage. And so if we move those underneath the stage and find a good home for them there, that'll, for one thing, that will shorten the distance between the analog input of the stage box and the digital stage box and improve quality, but it will also get those out of sight, and they won't need to be accessed as long as we have all of those connections from the stage connected there. So that's what we would like to do with those. And then that would, like we said, eliminate the analog snake, and it'll also give you all of that space back behind the console, all of that web of analog microphone cable that's coming in. We can eliminate all of that, and that'll help clean that up drastically. Okay, let's talk about lighting. The lighting that is currently in place is actually all probably quality, but there's some dated things going on, but there's also a considerable, I don't know of a better word than hodgepodge. There's a lot going on here. There's dimmer packs with incandescent lights, there's LED white lights, there's LED RGBAW multicolor lights, there are halogen floodlights, there are laser effect lights, there are Fresnels. I'm just going through looking at what you're looking at. So getting control all of that of all of that, also the moving heads, which aren't pictured. Getting control of all of that will be a huge challenge and require lots of time. There is a light that Blizzard makes called the Colorized Zoom. The Colorized Zoom, we used them at Zion Baptist was the last place we used them. They are really powerful, and they are RGB AWUV. So basically every kind of light and color that you can imagine they produce, but they're also zoomable via software. So once they're in place, you can actually zoom them in and out using the software in the booth. They are not moving heads, so they are in a fixed position. But that zoom gives you more, gives us more control at setup even, so that we can get it tighter in on the pulpit so it's a little bit brighter, and then do general washes and things like that. So it's a great light for that, and we would recommend coming in. I believe we've got 20 four sets of 5. Or something like that, but I'll look at the proposal. But anyway, just filling those lighting bays with all one light that does everything. Now, as far as the moving heads go, the moving heads are, for me, aesthetically are challenging, or they're jarring, I should say, when you first see them. And it's just because we have 2 sets of white and 2 sets of black. The position is probably correct, even though they would probably work up closer, more out of the room. But they are really next level lighting for productions and things like that. Think Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? That was where lighting moving heads were first debuted. And if we kept the lighting, the moving heads, I would recommend letting us remove the black ones and incorporate the white ones, if they're functioning well, into the system, if we want to keep using them. Otherwise, there's always a good market for moving headlights of every generation. So getting a good price for those on the market wouldn't be a bad deal. Even we would even try to, just to so we can get to that end, we would be willing to facilitate the selling of those black moving heads. To control the lights, like we said, it's going to be software. It's MyDMX is what it's called. DMX is the communication protocol for lighting these days. So we would run new cable, clean up all of that. We don't want to reuse any cable, because cable, when you're adding a lot of lighting, a lot of times it's varied cabling and patch cables and things like that. So we want to use consistently all one kind of cable throughout for dependability. And and then we want to come down to the stage and add color bars around the back side of the stage that would shine up on the wall and give it a nice glow. But as far as the software goes, the interface that takes it from DMX protocol to USB so that we can bring it to the computer is typically just a little box. But recently, ADJ came out with the MyDMX RM. Now, the MyDMX RM is a rack-mounted version of that. In other words, it's something that can be installed in a rack, which we have installed in the 2-space rack just under the lighting computer. Super handy because it has 15 preset buttons on the front of it. In other words, somebody can come in without knowing anything about the computer and be able to just hit any one of 15 buttons and recall a scene for the stage lights. So it takes all of the complication out of it, where anybody can get some stage lights on. And also, if it's set for a service, someone can just sit there and just push through the buttons as the service progresses. Or a production, it can be programmed with the software very easily. And so that's something really neat that I would love to incorporate on the control side of things. For the live streaming system, you can see that that little station that we actually have back here with we've got our camera control and the stream PC tucked away in that little area there. The that controller is really vital, I think, especially to a multi-camera system, because it lets you recall, or it lets you communicate with any one of the 3 cameras and recall position scenes. So in other words, I can select camera 2, scene 1, and I've recorded that scene to be the camera zoomed all the way out, capturing the entire congregation as everyone comes in. In fact, typically what I will do is I will set up all 3 cameras, scene 1, to be the beginning of service. So I can actually hit the full congregation and whatever's going on pre-service from any angle. And then scene 2 is always the first thing that happens in the service, and then the cameras all give me a different angle of that thing, and then so on and so forth all the way through the service. There are 10 preset buttons, and it will handle up to 9 cameras. But once it's set up, you laminate a little page explaining what each thing is, and it's super easy just to recall those scenes without ever having to touch the joystick. Now, the 3 cameras are not going to be easy to install. They never are. In a traditional historical building like you guys have, it's always plaster over brick on the sidewalls. Now, the genius idea was installing the camera just above the exit sign in the back. We would like to go to a 30 by zoom because of that distance, but I think that's a great idea, and I think that will be a great position for that camera. It also puts it on the same eye line and elevation as the other 2 cameras. And as we discussed, the cameras would be located on the just in front of those pillars. They're kind of faux pillars on the sides, and one will be 1/3 of the way back from the stage. The other one will be 2/3 of the way back from the stage on the other side, opposite side. Now, to get cable from the booth to these cameras, we've got to go through the attic, and then we've got to drill through the exquisite crown molding and patch that up so that it looks really nice and clean. But we're going to have to surface mount that cable with wire mold. That wire mold is paintable. However, in your case, the white may look just fine. And so that wire mold will come down from the crown molding down to the position of the camera. And those cameras will be tucked behind, mounts will be tucked on the front side of those faux pillars, so that helps hide a lot of that as well. Okay, so let's talk about the video presentation system. The system that you currently have in place is a standard definition 4:3 ratio system, and the projectors are receiving their signal via VGA, which is an analog signal. For this reason, the image quality will never be what modern video systems will produce. And you've already gone down the road there of installing the front stage displays that are sitting on the front pew via HDMI over network cable. And so that's great. You're on the right track. Now, we would want to go to another level and take this to what's called HD base T. HD base T is a high definition 4K video format that actually it will include like 16 channels of audio, control protocols. It'll carry all kinds of stuff over one network cable. Now, because of the distance that it is from the booth to where the projectors are, we would use Kramer triple shielded Cat 6. It's a heavy gauge. When you see it, you're just like, there's no way that's a network cable because it's so stinking thick. But it is a cable that is designed to carry HD base T transmissions long distances without interference. And it makes it really rock solid. In fact, We've recently had to go to some of our previous conference room installations and replace the Cat6 cable that we use, the standard Cat6 cable that we used originally, with this cable, because HDMI protocols and what computers are putting out now is has so many packets and is so intense and so labor intensive for the cable that it has actually consumed the bandwidth of the older generations of cable. Anyway, that being said, we want to set this up rock solid and future ready. Now, to complete this system, it's not enough just to send the right signal. We need the right display device. A lamped DLP projector will never perform as well as a laser projector because it has to do with so much more than just the brightness of the projector. Laser projectors have a 20,000 to 1 contrast ratio versus a lamped projector that is typically about 7,500 to 1. What that means is 1 being the darkest color, the darkest black, and 20,000 being the whitest white, and it's the distance in between. So there is a 20,000 to 1 contrast ratio, which means there's a 20,000 to 1 distance between the black and the white colors that it's able to produce in a laser projector, which means every color pops, every line is vivid, and it means that it is so much more realistic and more what we call painted on the wall than if you had a lamped projector. In our original bid, we were proposing to replace the electric drop-down screens that are in the Valance. And honestly, the cost to replace those screens with a smaller screen, because a 16:9 is a smaller screen, looks smaller than a 4:3, has less surface area. The cost in comparison to going with a large, what we call a perm wall, permanent screen over the organ chambers, over those areas, is really drastic. Electric screens are tons more expensive, and so we can get a lot more surface area if we have a place to install a perm wall screen. So of course we didn't get I forgot to get the measurements between the projector and the screen wall and the actual width of that area and the height of that area where a screen could be installed. But we've got something pretty close, and that price shouldn't change much, if at all, based on just adjustment for those exact dimensions. So I'm super excited about this proposal because, like I said, we've been stewing on it for a while, and so I feel like I've got a new depth of understanding about this setup and about your expectations that I don't normally get that amount of time to do. So as we present this to you, please keep in mind, again, that it is fluid, and we do have backup plans for certain things. However, we believe that quality will wane as the price decreases. So we're going to break this up into 4 separate sections in one proposal. To move forward as is, it's a 50% deposit for us to start acquiring equipment and getting everything started. Once we have everything that we need to get started, we'll contact you and set up a good time for that. We're going to break it up into 4 sections so that we can interrupt your service times as little as possible. So we want to basically be able to get through as much as we can and possibly all the way through one section of this proposal between Sundays so that people can appreciate that the next Sunday without having to have a portable system set up or something like that. And so the way that we're going to complete it is we'll do audio first. We'll address audio first. Of course, all of this is depending on availability because we want to move as quickly as possible. So we'll address one section at a time and depending on availability. However, we typically try to start with audio if everything is available and ready to go. So we will complete the audio section, and then we will pull a 25% draw of the remaining balance. And then we will move to another section of the proposal, whether it's lighting, video presentation, or live streaming. And then when that is complete, we will pull another 25% of the remaining balance of that 50%. And so on and so forth until we've completed the last section, gone through training and everything else, and we'll reserve that last draw for the completion of the project. So, if you'd like to go forward, please let us know, Jerry at bensberg.tech, bensberg.tech, or you can call us directly, 870-814-0714. Also, let us know if you have any questions, any changes, anything that you'd like to do going forward. We'd be happy to help. We're so excited to be on board with you guys, and we really believe what we've proposed is going to take you guys to the next level.